Governor Greg Abbott. On March 13, 2020, Governor Greg Abbott issued a declaration of emergency as a result of the COVID-19 virus outbreak. Subsequently, on March 16, 2020, pursuant to the authority granted in the declaration, Governor Abbott temporarily suspended the application of certain provisions of the Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, in order to permit telephonic open meetings. This was an effort to mitigate the spread of the COVID-19 virus by avoiding large group meetings while still ensuring continued governmental operations and preserving transparency in the decision-making process. Pursuant to this authority, Tarrant County College District gave notice of its intent to conduct today's work session meeting as a telephonic and video conference open meeting. 4 trustees will participate in person for this meeting: myself, Conrad Heed, Mr. Kenneth Barr, Mr. Greenhill, and Mr. Hornsby. Dr. Diane Patrick, Dr. Gwendolyn Morrison, and Ms. Teresa Ayala will participate via video conference or telephonically. I'll now call the work session meeting of the Board of Trustees of February 11, 2021 to order. And before we hear any public comment for this afternoon's meeting, I'd like to ask Carol Bracken to the podium to initiate the swearing-in ceremony for our newest appointee to the Board of Trustees, Trustee Leonard Hornsby, soon to be. Carol.
Good afternoon, President Heed, Trustees, Chancellor Giovannini. I'm very pleased this afternoon to present Mr. Leonard Hornsby for the swearing-in ceremony as trustee appointee for District 5. You will recall the District 5 vacancy arose as a result of former trustee Dr. Michael Evans' successful campaign to become mayor of Mansfield. Trustee Hornsby will serve until May 1st, 2021, at which time he, along with other candidates, will run to fill the unexpired term for District 5, which ends in May of 2023. We are fortunate to have former trustee and now mayor of Mansfield, Dr. Michael Evans, here to serve as officiant for the swearing-in ceremony of Mr. Hornsby. Gentlemen, if you'd like to come forward and conduct the ceremony. Thank you.
Mr. Hornsby, will you raise your right hand, please? Please repeat after me. I, Leonard Morris Hornsby.
I, Leonard Morris Hornsby.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully.
That I will faithfully.
Execute.
Execute.
The duties.
The duties.
Of the office.
Of the office.
Of college trustee.
Of college trustee.
For Tarrant County College.
For Tarrant County College.
Of the state of Texas.
Of the state of Texas.
And will.
And will.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
Preserve.
Preserve.
Protect.
Protect.
And defend.
And defend.
The Constitution.
The Constitution.
And laws.
And laws.
Of the United States.
Of the United States.
And of this state.
And of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. Congratulations, sir. All right.
Congratulations to both of you. And new trustee Hornsby, would you like to introduce? I understand you have a special guest.
Yes, sir, I do. I have my gift from God, which is my wife, Darlene Hornsby, my encourager and my biggest supporter.
Would you like to say a few words, or?
Well, yeah, I got a few. To President Heed and all of the distinguished members of the Board of Trustees of Tarrant County College, to Dr. Giovannini, administrators, students, staff, and faculty members, I stand before you today grateful to God for this opportunity, excited about the chance to serve, and prayerful that I will have the wisdom, foresight, understanding, and fortitude needed to help Tarrant County College to continue to be the stellar institution she is, and to play a part in helping her enlarge her territory as the educational institution of choice for all the residents of Tarrant, Johnson, Ellis, and yes, even Dallas County. I'm grateful for the presence of my gift from God, my wife, Darlene, who is my biggest supporter and encourager in all things. Also, I'm thankful for Dr. Evans, my brother, my pastor, my mayor, for taking the time to come today and participate in my swearing in. I will look forward to working with the members of the board as we continue to work to be one college, student ready, and that we serve the community well. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee. Now let's get to work. Is there any public comment? There is no public comment. So we will review our board business items. Item 4A is the work session meeting minutes draft. Is there any comments on that? There being none, we'll go to 4B, the Board of Trustees meeting minutes of January 21st. Are there any comments regarding that? There being none, we'll go to item 5, Chancellor's overview.
Thank you, Mr. Heed. This afternoon, we have a few items dealing with learning and learning support and the college experience, specifically one tuition rate for dual credit students, as well as fees for hosting and storing our curriculum and material and student work, if you will, on Blackboard. We have a couple of capital improvements at the South Campus. One would be the design of the old electrical building, and then an expansion of the library data room. We do have a number of items in no particular order or in category that speak to the request for a pay adjustment, a policy that speaks to the qualification and clarification of pay raise in terms of when that would kick in. We also have, at the request of the board, a resolution to ensure future building considerations. And each year we ask the board to entertain, of course, fees for specific courses. We begin registration in April for next year, so those course fees need to be acted upon. This is not tuition. These are fees to specific courses. We will entertain some discussion on tuition in the coming months. We have our annual resolution related to awarding tenure, a spending authority increase to purchase computers, and then we do have to wash our windows every year, and you'll act upon that today as well. So thank you, Mr. Heed.
Thank you, Chancellor. We'll move on to item 6, review of proposed consent agenda items for board meetings on February 18, 2021. Ms. Alanis. Item A is consideration approval of fiscal year 2021 mid-year pay adjustments for all employees.
Yeah, so this is a happy item to put before the board. You've requested that we continue to look at our ability to adjust the compensation for the employees of the district. You may recall that last summer when we approved the budget, there was a lot of uncertainty at that point about enrollment, potential impacts to state funding, and so on as we were preparing for our response to COVID. Since that time, I think we've affirmed that we continue to be in a solid financial position and able to meet our obligations, and so we've recommended a 3% increase to the pay rates for employees effective March the 1st. So it'll be for half a year this year. We will not be asking for additional appropriation in order to fund that because we do budget very conservatively for salaries here and don't assume any vacancies or anything like that. And so there's certainly room within the current appropriation for us to absorb the cost of the increase, which is estimated to be $2.8 million.
Questions, discussion? There being none, we'll move on to 6B, consideration and approval of amendment to TASB local policy DEA earnings and salary increases section.
Yeah, so one of the things that we identified while we were preparing for this mid-year increase is a review of the policy that currently states that a policy for the upcoming, a pay increase for the upcoming year is applicable to anyone who is under contract by May the 31st of the prior year. And so the pay increase we just discussed is applicable to those employees that were under contract or employed by May the 31st. However, that creates sort of an unintended consequence of employees who may sign their contract in the spring but not start till later, getting the benefit where employees that start sooner than them actually wouldn't be eligible for the raise. And so what we'd like to do is amend the policy going forward after this event to say that they need to be actively employed as of May the 31st. It creates a cleaner date and a fairer implementation for all employees.
Questions, discussion? There being none, we'll move on to item 6C, consideration and approval of a resolution expressing the Board of Trustees' commitment to innovate technology, accessibility, and sustainability on new and renovated facilities.
Yes, so you may recall last month we had a conversation about the contracts that we were pursuing related to the bond program, and a request was made that we prepare a resolution that affirms the board's commitment to using innovative technologies whenever practicable. And we also integrated the deliverables that we owe to you in the coming months related to the sustainability plan as well as a digital roadmap. What we've attached to this document is the resolution itself, and then also a copy of the memorandum of understanding that we'll actually execute with each of our partners in the bond program that include the 2 design firms as well as Jacobs Engineering.
Questions, discussion?
Mr. Heed, hi, this is Teresa. I have a couple of questions, and I'm not sure if this is more legal in nature. If I may pose these, please.
Please.
Thank you. Ms. Elise, thank you for the information on this. I wanted to ask on the proposed action, there's references to new plan, design, and constructive. And I didn't know if been renovated and whether or not those terms are actually going to be defined somewhere, or are they, what is our reference point when we refer to those terms? That's one of the questions. And then the second question I have is, again, I just want to get clarification on what sort of recourse there is with when there's a resolution if we feel terms are not being met. So those are really the 2 questions I have.
So there's not a specific definition of plan, design, and constructed. I think we intended those words to be just plain language that are all encompassing as we do all of our renovation and construction work across the district. And so, we intend to have this lens with any project that we do that might have technology and sustainability aspects to them. So it's intended to be broad in nature rather than narrowly defined.
Okay.
The other thing I'll note is that in terms of consequence, the consequence is within the contracts that we have with each of those providers. So Jacobs, Perkins and Will, and Huckabee and Gensler, we've got the ability to sever those agreements if at any point they are not meeting any of their obligations to us under those contracts, which would include our guidance here. Certainly the board, I would expect that you would hold the Chancellor and myself accountable for ensuring that this is happening, and then it's our contract rather than the MOUs or this resolution that are binding to our vendors. Is she muted?
Ms. Ayala?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. Yes, I wanted to say thank you for just clarifying. I know that I had asked that question previously, and I just wanted to make sure that I was clear as far as recourse. And in these other terms, I get it. I just wanted to make sure that there was no ambiguity anywhere down the line of what was considered renovation, what was considered new, that kind of thing. So I get it. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Any
Mr.
other
President?
questions? Yes. Go
This
ahead.
is Diane.
Yes.
Can you hear me? As
Yes,
a
go
follow-up to Ms. Ayala's question and for clarification purposes, is this considered an addendum to the contract? Is this considered a change order? Or is this, when you say MOU, I understand memorandum of understanding, but along the lines of accountability, how is that considered with regard to change order or addendum or?
So it's really a standalone document that is just clarifying our expectations. We are not amending or adding it to the contract itself, but it's the responsibility of staff to make sure that it's really sort of creating a lens through which they'll view the project rather than having a specific consequence.
Well, I guess that's what I was a little bit concerned about. When you say it's a stand-alone document, then how do we ensure that it doesn't get separated?
I guess, this is going to be a long-term engagement with all of these firms. And I would suggest that the board would be looking to staff to make sure that this continues to be applied. I mean, you've made that expectation clear of staff, and we'll be imposing that. And certainly each time we come back to the board with recommendations about future projects and that kind of thing, it'll be your opportunity to evaluate whether we've effectively done that or not.
Mr. President,
go ahead.
I'd like to ask the Chancellor and Ms. Alanis and legal counsel to consider whether the terms that we're trying to express in this resolution, in the MOU, could be included in future contracts. I think it's the sense of this board that this is the approach we want to use, and it seems to me that it ought to be in the contract if at all possible. And the reason we didn't put it in the contracts last month was that there were a lot of questions about where we were in the moving process. I'd ask that you investigate that.
Okay. Be happy to.
Any other questions, comments?
Mr. President, good afternoon. It's Gwen Morrison.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I'm not clear. Do we have an accountability or measure for, I know we do for staff. We always have an accountability measure for staff or for the one staff person that the board hires. But do we have accountability measure for the other parties to the contract?
So what I would suggest is that design and all of the decisions about the different construction materials and methods are sort of iterative in nature. And so I don't know that they're laid out here. What I would suggest is that when we come back to you with our sustainability plan as well as our technology roadmap, some of those specific requirements will be more further refined and applied, and will become part of our design standards and specifications. And so we'll be able to see how that's carried out going forward in that manner.
Okay, and so for me, it would probably be helpful is if at the time those plans are presented, those aspects that relate to this policy could be highlighted.
Yes, ma'am.
So that we clearly understand that we are addressing this commitment, if that's possible.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Heath, this is Teresa, if I may, please.
Please.
Ms. Alanis, just want to get clarification on what, if any, of the policies need to be updated related to the standards and what needs to be, so that therefore all of this is kind of reflected from a policy perspective, kind of to Mr. Barr's point. I just want to make sure that there's nothing that we're missing that we need to take care of updating to make sure that that's going forward, that this is the expectation, I guess.
So I think the next significant step for the board will be when we return to you with the digital roadmap and the sustainability plan. Linked to that, there will be potential expansion or amendment of our design specifications in order to achieve the objectives and measures that are laid out on those plans. And so the design standards are not something that come to the board because they're very technical in nature, and obviously we rely on architects and engineers and so on to understand that. But the direction from the board in adopting either of those plans would be for staff to go back and amend our standards accordingly. So that'll be a process that occurs over a number of months.
So when you refer to standards, are you talking about the standards that are currently in the policies and they would be included in them, or is that a separate?
So I guess let me provide an example.
Okay.
So for example, in the sustainability plan, if we, and I'm going to make up a number, decide we want to reduce our energy consumption by X% a year for the next 5 years, then we would work with the professionals to help us understand what it would take to achieve that. Is it an amendment of the materials that we choose? Is it an amendment to the mechanical systems and so on? And how does that translate into the design specifications that we require of all new construction and renovation? So does that help?
It does, but what I'm trying to get at is whether or not, there's facility standards that are in the policies today, and whether or not there's anything that we need to revisit once we get through this process, like you talked about, to just go in and make sure that what we decide going forward is indeed reflected in the policies.
Yes. So when those plans are developed, staff will go back and amend the design standards to reflect what's agreed upon as those in those plans in terms of how we would achieve that. So staff would go back and make those amendments to the design guidelines.
Okay. And then we would see that in the policies, correct?
It's not something that the board approves because of the technical nature of them. However, what I would suggest is that we would share with the board the methods by which we would be achieving those outcomes. And so if there is a change to building materials, mechanical systems, and so on,
right,
we would paint that picture to you about how we made changes to make sure that we're going to meet the goals of the board.
Right. And I understand that with the difference on the standards and the design standards, I'm just trying to figure out, and I'm sorry, I'm not explaining it properly. I want to make sure, I guess, that once those standards are in place, that we're all in alignment, that there is the expectations of what the board that's kind of like outlined in this resolution, that all of that is somehow documented, reflected in the policies. So there's no ambiguity going forward. So maybe what I'm asking, I guess, if we could just take a look at those once we get to that point and make sure that what our expectations are going forward are reflective in the policies. That's all I guess I want to make sure of.
You may be talking about the policies that are in that great big book we have, the
right.
Written, all right. That's what she's talking about. What she's talking about is.
Yeah, and I'm probably not clearly distinguishing enough between the categories. So there are no board policies per se on the construction methods, right? Because the board relies on in your adopted policies. However, what we would do next is we would adopt a plan about what you're trying to achieve in terms of sustainability and technology. And then the third layer of that is those design guidelines and specifications that are applied. And that's what it would be updated on the back end of that to reflect how we're going to achieve that plan.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay, that does. Okay, thank you very much.
And will there be specific goals set in terms of like energy efficiency, air quality, those kinds of things in those new standards?
So we're in the process of creating a starting place for the sustainability plan, for example. And we've gone out and read some pretty high quality ones of university systems that have applied those. It's really a function of the board's desire in terms of what objectives and measures that you want to set. And so we will prepare for you some guidance on that about what we think are reasonable and also attainable, but also pushing the envelope to do better. And we will provide that to you, and then it'll be an iterative discussion with the board about how far we go before that plan is adopted.
And I would think that would be a living document.
Yes, sir.
Because COVID, et cetera, the next one, I don't think we know exactly how to counteract that or prevent that from happening. Obviously, UV light treatment and filters and those kinds of things, spacing, those, I guess, specifications would be evolving as the experts weigh in on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think what I would say is that the board our hope is that we'll help you articulate what you want to achieve, which is, good air quality, reduction of electrical expenses and consumption, and so on. Trash that we generate. I mean, there's a whole variety of things. Set those goals, and then we'll help you fine tune that into some measurable ways of achieving that, and then the methods by which we would go about doing that. So, again, it'll be an iterative process that does, and it is living. It'll be updated over time as things change, and as we add different elements to it. Right in the early phase of it, I expect that we'll be focusing heavily on construction, right, and the buildings themselves. The next step may be operations that pick up things like, trash generation, recycling, those kinds of things. And then there's other layers of that other institutions have adopted as well about being sustainable organizations. And so, again, it'll grow over time.
Thank you. Any other questions, discussion? Thank you, Ms. Alanis. We'll move to item 6D, consideration approval of student fees for the academic year 2021-2022. Dr. LeBlanc.
Good afternoon, Mr. Heed, board members, Dr. Giovannini. The recommendation is for approval of the student fees for the academic year 2021-2022. Please note that the recommended student fees are the same that we have this year. The only adjustment to what we have here is clarification verbiage on the prior learning assessment fee. We wanted to make sure the students understood that the fee was per course. And I'm available for questions.
Questions, discussion, comments? Thank you. There being none, we'll move on to item 6F. 6E, consideration approval of recommendation for faculty tenure awards.
So the next is the list of faculty that qualify for tenure. Their documentation has been reviewed by the campus administrators and followed up by my office. There are 26 individuals recommended for tenure.
Questions, discussion?
Mr. Heed, this is Teresa. May I proceed with a couple of questions? Thank you. Hi, Dr. LeBlanc. Thank you for this information. What percentage of all of the faculty positions are tenured?
I don't have that information, but I'll be happy to get that to you.
Okay, thank you. Also, I have another couple of subsequent questions. I'm sure there's processes in place as far as evaluations and things like that, but how often are those processes or policies that are associated with this, how often are they monitored to encourage diversity in hiring, and then also in evaluating of who's tenured? And
so in terms of the policy, we are in the process of doing that as we speak, because we now have what we're calling faculty framework that speaks to a number of things. One is educational attainment requirements for the placement, promotion and rank and tenure of faculty. The other piece to the faculty framework is that we have defined what excellence is, and we are connecting faculty excellence to student success. So that's one piece as it relates to policy, and we are working on, there are several policies actually impacted by that we will be bringing to the board in the next few board meetings.
Okay.
Yes, and the other piece is we are working on a plan to ensure that our faculty look more like our students, because indeed we are concerned about connecting the dots between faculty excellence and student success.
Great. Just as a subsequent question to that, if you're working on policies, I don't know if there's one or if we're exploring that something that would require a formal review of the progress on those that are faculty members that are untenured, for example, but that are on a tenure track and for tenure track for promotion. And I just wondered if there's something in place that we're working on to make sure that we're kind of tracking that progress and see what we can do to help to make sure we get them to that next level.
Right. So that's a great question as well, also related to faculty framework, because as we define faculty excellence and student success, we are also connecting that to the professional development we will be offering in the Center for Teaching and Learning. And you will have the opportunity to meet our new executive director at the board meeting. I'm very excited about that. So we're working fast and furious to make these things happen. Good questions.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Yes, and congratulations to these that are recommended for tenure. That's great news.
Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Dr.
Morris. Thank you. I have a couple of questions that I would like a little clarification on. Explain the connection between tenure and rank, the benefits of tenure, and then unless nominated by their president, is there not a route to tenure? And in the same vein, unless endorsed by the provost.
Okay, so those were several questions, and let me see if I remember. First, there is a connection between rank and tenure, and it's currently linked to the educational level of the faculty member and to their evaluations and their performance in the classroom, as well as other duties that are assigned to full-time faculty members. So before you are eligible for tenure, you must move from the instructor level to the assistant instructor level. So they are always connected, the rank and the tenure. So that was one question. I'm sorry, what was your other question?
Benefits of tenure.
So the benefits of tenure in the policy, basically when an individual has tenure, it's on the institution to prove that the individual is not performing at an appropriate level at a point where that person may be let go. With that said, we have, while it's not in policy, we take great pains in documenting, giving feedback, and making every effort for the employee to be successful.
Okay, and then the last question that I asked was that with the exception of a nomination by their president and an endorsement by the provost, is there a route to tenure or not?
So typically it's on the faculty member to submit their portfolio for review when moving into the rank of at least assistant instructor to qualify for tenure. And the ultimately that's reviewed by the deans, recommended to the vice presidents. The vice presidents work in concert. They meet together and review the paperwork together to ensure there is consistency from campus to campus. Those are procedures that we've had in place for approximately 7 years.
Okay, so a person who might be considered an outlier, if they're not granted tenure 1 year, can they come back and apply after time? No, is there training for that?
So again, it's up to the faculty member to apply for tenure. And we are reviewing the policies. Currently, if you're an assistant instructor or higher and you qualify for tenure, you have about a 4-year period in which to achieve tenure. And if you haven't done that, you can be let go. I can't give you an example of one because I don't remember of anyone fitting that category. We have several faculty members that are at the instructor level, and until they earn more credits, educational credits, they will stay at the instructor level and they will not be eligible for tenure. And that's under today's policy. The policies that we will bring to you broaden those categories so that more faculty will be eligible for tenure.
That sounds promising. Somewhere in my educational journey, I remember it being said that the true requirement for being qualified for a teaching position, almost any college, but particular community college, was proof of knowledge. And I'm just asking you, you don't have to answer it, to consider that that's built into our policy. I understand about college hours, having a few hundred myself, but I just see the need for us to be as inclusive as possible, because that helps us to ensure the success of our students, having accessibility to persons who have the knowledge and the subject matter knowledge and the industry experience. So I know this is a serious process. I appreciate the diligence that staff devotes to it. Is there a financial benefit to tenure?
Not necessarily to tenure. You do not get an increase in salary when you get tenure. You do get an increase in salary when you move from one rank to the other. And later in our meeting, you will get a list of the instructors or of the faculty members that are getting a promotion in rank, and they will get a salary increase. So for instructor to assistant instructor, the salary increase is $1,200. From assistant to associate instructor, the salary increase is $1,600. And the increase for the associate instructor to professor is $2,000.
And then that stacks on top of their current salary and becomes a part of their salary. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time to just remind me of those facts. Thank you so much.
Always my pleasure. Thank you.
Mr. Heath?
Yes.
I have a question for Dr.
Go right ahead.
Yes, I heard you say that part of the evaluation part of the portfolio were evaluations. And I didn't hear you say, are those student evaluations, are those dean evaluations, or both?
Both. We have student evaluations, and then the dean evaluates as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments? suggestions? Thank you. We'll move on to item 6F, which is consideration and approval of the recommendation to apply the in-county tuition rate to all students participating in the college's dual credit program effective for the academic year of 2021 to 2022. Dr. LeBlanc and Dr. Coppola.
Yes, sir. So Dr. Coppola has an excellent presentation. As you well know, in addition to being president of the Southeast Campus, he's also champion of the high school principal. And it's through the work of the principal that we bring this recommendation and action item.
Thank you, Dr. LeBlanc. Chancellor, Mr. Heed, members of the board, and welcome Mr. Hornsby to the board. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. It's really exciting. I get to get out of the house, and this is a good time here. As Dr. LeBlanc said, I'm here today to represent the members of the high school principal who have done just tremendous work over this last year, and it's been quite a while since I addressed you on behalf of the principal work. And here at Tarrant County College, we know that we are more than serving just the students who come to us virtually and face-to-face to our campuses, but we are continuously working with our partner ISDs to better prepare their students to increase their probability for success by removing barriers from one college perspective. And what we're going to show you today is one barrier that we think is really going to increase the probability of students attaining their college education. Many of the relationships that we have now are really between the campuses and the ISDs. And through the principal work, we are moving more as from the college to the ISDs as to have standardization. This slide here that I want to show you, really I want to take a few minutes to show you some of the work that we have been doing through our team. The first thing we did is looked at the dual credit, our current and future state. Since we were kind of independent between our campuses, we have 16 independent school districts we work with and a number of charter schools and homeschools. We worked with the dual credit council, Richard Vela's office, and our principal work over the year to standardize all of the work we're doing. So we're basically telling the same story to each ISD. But what we really had an opportunity to do then was also to look at future trends of dual credit. We have always been very reactive. Someone comes to us and says, here's what we want to do. As an institute of higher education, we feel it is our responsibility to do the research and give them advice on saying, this is where these are trends around the country that might be better for the students in your population. So doing benchmarking with sister institutions around the state and nationwide was really an important part of that team. And that really set the foundation for our principal work. The last time I spoke with you, I showed you about the increase in the early college, high schools, and PTECs. This has really been a game changer in really allowing low socioeconomic students, first generation college students, to really not only attend dual credit. Now let's go back to the first. Oh, am I doing this? There we go. Thank you. Sorry. Not only do they, but also be the first in their family to go to college and receive their associate's degree prior to finishing their high school diploma. And I'm going to have one more slide at the end of this in order to show you that. What's an exciting part too is the personas work. With student experience, you have heard with that the personas work has really identified who our students are so we can better address them as an individual rather than just as a group of students. The personas work has over time become the foundation of all of the decision-making processes that we're making as we move forward. So we're looking at the student first, goes back to one of our goals, to be student ready. Going through the high school students, we have a variety, we have 16 ISDs. Our dual credit students come from a variety of different backgrounds. Many of them trying to be first time in college dual credit students in the 11th grade. So we were able to create additional personas just to address these students that we then added to the deck with student experience, which gave us a better understanding of who our students were. Our partnership agreements was the one that was really the hardest work that we did. Richard Vela did that under his direction. And we've, like I said before, we've always been reactive when someone comes to us with a new program that they want to do. Being proactive, we can then work with our partners early on at the table at the beginning of the process. So we put in a process with our ISD partners. So when an initiative comes up, we're at the beginning. We're not coming in at the end in order to help mold that program that's best for the students. One of the newest ones that we really had to address was the delivery for our embedded faculty. And embedded faculty are high school faculty members that hold the credentials to teach college level classes, but they're hired by the high school. We don't do much of it in our ISD, and I mean at TCC, but at many other colleges around the state and around the country, embedded faculty is the norm. We see this area growing fast, particularly with our CTE classes that are being offered as part of dual credit in our PTEX. So what we had to put in place was a practice of how to hire these individuals, how to onboard them, how to evaluate them, and what professional development do embedded faculty really need in order to be members of the TCC family, but be employed by the high school. And that has been one that we're really moving forward with. So, which way do I turn? Point there. So what I wanted to do was just do a follow-up from a year ago when I met with you, when we had 11 early college high schools in PTEX. And we know right now we're in the process of partnering with our ISD. We will have 29 minimum by 2022 of early college high schools in PTEX. We really think that's going to be more like 31 or 32. It is the fastest growing part of the state with delivering dual credit. This slide gives you, we broke it out because we have a bigger slide about that, a different presentation. But I wanted to show you this that really shows the breakout between the campuses that have the different PTEX and the early college high schools. And in the past, what we've done with our early college high schools and PTEX that have been in place, they've really been attached to one campus that has been responsible for supporting them. We are now working on a one college model to have a college perspective in order to support all of these. In the blue bubble there for 2021 statewide, you see that the PTEC and the STEMs is the fastest growing sector of early college high schools and dual credit. So when I did this to you, and I spoke with you about it, it was evident from that presentation, if you remember, this was a game changer. This was something that really changed, changing a cycle of poverty through education and getting down into individuals in the 8th and 9th grade. So today you're going to hear about another game changer. First of all, there was a wonderful team that was put together. One of the great things about the principal work that I have really enjoyed, I know all the champions have, we are really working with a variety of individuals from a number of sectors around the campus that are coming together, and the people that are really on the ground doing the work are making the recommendations. This was the group that is here. I forgot to say that Sherry Clanton is with me today. She's from the business office. She was very instrumental in this proposal. She'll be presenting a couple of slides at the end. This slide here, what I wanted to do was give you a perspective of the value of why we went into this work. We know that if a student takes at least one dual credit class while they're in high school, they have a better chance of going on to get a college education. Here and I'm trying to see this one. So if a student knows, and this came out of our fabulous institutional research office, Dr. Stoll will put this together for us to really give us a baseline of why we're here. If a student comes right out to us as a first time in college student from high school with no dual credit, they have a 17% chance of finishing in 4 years an associate's degree or a 4-year degree. If the more classes they take in dual credit while they're in high school, the higher the chances are that they're going to finish their college education on time and more than likely under budget. The 12 hours seems to be the flattening out part. If a student can take 12 hours of dual credit, then they reach that 44%. These numbers are almost identical from the coordinating board on statewide averages also. But this is how the value of dual credit is, and the students know this and the schools know this. So right now, with dual credit, we currently have a tuition base that students pay tuition based on their home residency. Many of our ISDs have students that live outside of our district and are paying out of district, sometimes out of state tuition because they just moved here within their families compared to our in district. And there's a few of them, there's not a lot, but there's a bunch of them that are doing this. And this has been a barrier for students who can't afford that, who live right on the fringes. So with the ISDs and schools, there are two different models. There's one where the students are paying their own tuition or their parents. And then there's the sponsor model by the ISDs. Mansfield, Dr. Hornsby, is an example of that. And so is Arlington ISD. And Fort Worth is doing it now for certain populations where the school boards have decided to pay that tuition for the students. And I'm clicking. There we go. This map here shows you our service area along with where our ISDs are out there. The ISDs with the largest out-of-county semester hours is Northwest. And if you look at Northwest up in the north, they serve many students that are in Denton County up there that work with this. And that is really the largest number of students, with 39% of the students being out of county or out of state. Mansfield has 8%, and then Arlington has 5% that live out. However, on the dollar side, on the right, you'll see that Mansfield is $68,000 is being spent for out of district and out of county. Now, this is really important for Mansfield and for some of the ISDs because some of these ISDs have budgeted a set amount of money to pay the tuition as a sponsor. And once they exceeded that amount, then no other students can be sponsored unless the students pay for themselves. So this in Mansfield, this would put $68,000 back in their pockets in order to increase the number of students that can pay, that can take advantage of dual credit. Fort Worth, you want to say, well, how does Fort Worth have out of district and down to county? They have a large number of individuals that are literally out of state. They have just moved here within the year and have not been here long enough to get residency as in-county residency. What we really feel that this can do for us also is to attract some ISDs that are just on the fringe of us that do want to work with us. An example is Azle. Azle is just to the left. I don't have a pointer. You can put that up, but it's just to the left of the county there. And Azle right now is doing most of their dual credit through UT Austin through a program called On-Ramps, which is online, which is working with the faculty at the high school and the faculty with UT. They have requested to come into our district and we can work with them through Trinity River or with Northwest. Burleson, Aledo, and Joshua are other similar districts. So I'm going to turn this right now over to Sherry, and I think she's online to give you some of the business aspects of this proposal. There she is.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. Currently, TCC has a 3-tier tuition structure, as we know. We charge $64 per credit hour for a resident of Tarrant County, $126 per credit hour for a resident of another Texas county, and we charge a $305 rate for an out-of-state or non-resident student. However, if we were to change to a single in-county rate for the dual credit students taking courses under a Memorandum of Understanding partnership, we would build goodwill with our ISD partners as they grow their programs and work to earn additional funds by demonstrating college, career, and military readiness. And so what is the impact of changing our tuition policy? Based on our fall 2020 numbers, which include 26,117 dual credit enrollments, our current 3-tier tuition structure reflects $1.8 million in tuition revenue. If we elected to remove the out-of-county status and move to a 2-tier structure and charge in-state or out-of-state foreign, this would bring the revenue down to $1.76 million. In order to recover the loss in revenue, we would only need an increase of 147 enrollments, excuse me, which is approximately 0.5% of our current enrollment. Now, if we move to a more equitable tuition structure by charging all dual credit students the current in-county rate of $64 per hour, we would still only need an increase of 385 enrollments, or approximately 1.47%. However, this wouldn't be an issue since we already have an average dual credit growth of 250 enrollments per year. Therefore, we only need an increase of 135 enrollments to recover this loss. By offering a single tuition rate across the board, this is easily obtainable. By making tuition for our current ISD partners and students more affordable, this will in return increase our overall dual credit enrollment for both our out-of-county and our out-of-state foreign students attending one of our partner in-district high schools. And I will turn it back over to Dr. Coppola.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
So in summary, and this is really about accessibility for our students. So in summary, we want to discontinue the 3-tier model and create more opportunities for students by making dual credit more accessible, affordable, and equitable. Let me also remind that at many institutions of higher education or community colleges around the state, this is already in place. But the important part of this is that the students have to be enrolled in a dual credit program with a partner ISD, charter, or private school, and that the courses that will be on the $64 or the in-district tuition will be part of the MOU approved crosswalk of courses. So students can't just come in and say, I just want to take a class and charge in district. It'll be in the approved. So now I'm going to ask Dr. LeBlanc to come up and make the official request, and then we'll be here for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Coppola. So basically what we are requesting or recommending, I should say, is that students participating in a dual credit program shall be charged the in-county tuition rate of $64 per semester hour. And as mentioned by Dr. Coppola, eligible courses must be on the memorandum of understanding that we have with the public schools and the approved course crosswalk. I want to add that in addition to the tuition, we get state reimbursement on the dual credit students. So that's also important information. And we're available for any questions that you may have.
Has COVID affected the attendance rate of dual credit early college high school students? Not the attendance, but the participation.
I have that. I just won the bet because I knew the question you're going to ask. So the number of dual credit students decreased by 6%, about 400 students from 2019 to 2020. And dual credit students, and that is about equal to what the rest of our enrollment is. We expect that to go right back up once we get back.
These are high school students, but have they been treated the same as our other students in terms of CARES money and computers and hotspots? And
no, not with the CARES money on that. The high schools have actually taken care of a lot of that, but they have gone to online dual credit.
And what can we, this is a bigger question, we got consideration here, but have we encouraged, how can we encourage teachers to get the qualification so they can become embedded teachers for TCC?
Well, the ISDs are the ones that are encouraging that with us, because as they're growing the number of classes that they want to offer, it's a lot on us to get faculty to teach there. And especially with our early college, high schools, and BTECs, most of them will be hiring faculty with a master's in 18 hours. That is the best model, is to have embedded faculty in those. They're almost all embedded faculties. The embedded faculties that'll be in traditional gen ed, the high schools know that it is a benefit for them to have embedded faculty with scheduling that they're doing with the students. So they have to depend on our faculty having to drive over to the high school and only fit within the schedule.
Do those teachers get any increase in pay if they are teaching a dual
What
credit
happens
course?
now is, on most occasions, if there is an embedded faculty being used, then we reimburse rather than paying the adjunct rate to one of our adjuncts, we pay the ISD. The ISD then decides what to do with that. Many times they'll give a stipend to the faculty member that are teaching.
Thank you.
But I can't swear that it's all of them. So.
Quick.
I appreciate the presentation about there might be a loss in money because of this, and I think it's a risk. My view is it's a risk worth taking. It's not a big risk, but it's definitely worth taking. I think this is an excellent idea. Thank you.
Thank the team.
And Dr. Coppola is personally going to recruit those additional students.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have a road show I'm going to go on now.
Mr. Heath, this is Teresa. I have a couple of questions, please.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Dr. Coppola, it's wonderful to see you. And I'm just so happy to see that, we're looking outside the box and really looking to even the playing field for all students. So I'm glad to see this. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, I was really excited to see the trajectory of how these numbers are going up, and how we're projected in 2022 to have 29 to 31 of these programs. But how do we look at demographic data and the census data that's going to be coming out, here in the summer? How do we look at that to kind of prepare our next phase, right? So our next step. So we know in 2022, but we're going to be getting some census data here at the end of this year. So how will we look at that, evaluate that, and use that for planning going forward?
Well, not just for dual credit. I think that would be part of our entire enrollment plan.
Right.
These are just students working on that. I've learned a lot working through T3 about the demographics of Fort Worth, probably more than I want to know on the changing demographics. But we do know that, which we learned, and Dr. LeBlanc with Marine Creek, when she started that over at Northwest, is if you get down into the first generation, lower socioeconomic population, it kind of spreads like wildfire, especially the best recruiting in a family is when the oldest child gets that college credit. And all of a sudden, we'll meet all those students who says, I can't wait to go to college. And that just starts a cycle. And that's really what we do. We start, we want to make sure that there's an intention to go to college, not a choice. They want to go for that because they see the benefits of it. And this helps the whole community.
Right. Thank you for that. And then the second question I have is, what have we looked at as far as numbers wise? How is this going to contribute or factor into the 60 by 30? How is that going to?
Great question. That's great. I think that's really going to affect with our P-TECs. The B-TECs that are opening up mostly, and they're strictly career path. So we know that right now, actually it's going to be 65 or 70% of positions are going to need some type of post-secondary certification or degree. Out of the P-TECs, those students will be receiving a post-secondary certification and degree when they graduate high school, which will make them more marketable and also with a higher pay rate, salary.
Right. Okay, great.
Oh, and they're also completers, which is more important to Dr. LeBlanc, who has to report those to the state. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Coppola.
Go ahead, Dr. Patrick.
Yes. Thank you for the excellent report. I'm very excited about this program because it just does so much good for so many students. I was wondering if you could take a moment to talk a little bit about the distinctions between early college, high school, and dual credit.
Oh, sure. Basically, dual credit is open to all students on the high school that are TSI complete, that want to take a class in order to get. Some of them just want to get a start on college. Some of them just want to try out college to see if they can do it. It also helps with the ISD. Early college, high school, as you know, is really selective. It is there to help the population, first generation, low socioeconomic students. The difference is that these students are high performing students, but they're not demonstrated it as so much in middle school. And they're identified by the school as somebody who says, this person needs to get in a different type of environment. The early college environment is really one where those faculty are fabulous. And they'll take 125 in each cohort. And those students will progress as a cohort through 4 years and finish with their associate's degree before they finish with their high school diploma.
So the early college, high school.
Yeah, an important point. I'm sorry, Dr. LeBlanc just reminded me that early college, high schools, and P-TECs, there is no tuition to those students. That is free to the students.
Thank you. Well, so the early college, high school is an entire program, and dual credit is course by course.
Yeah, dual credit is.
Leads me to my next question. Is there are there specific courses that are not allowed to be dual credit? Restrictions on, for example, that they be core curriculum?
Yeah, I'm going to try, and Dr. LeBlanc will help me if I do. First of all, for it to be dual credit, it really should have a PEAMS course attached to it, so the students are getting the high school credit at the same time they're getting the college level credit. And it also should be, if it has to be part of the MOU, we do a crosswalk. Actually, Richard Vela's office does that through the MOU, and the courses have to lead to a certificate or a degree. Is that right? And it cannot be developmental.
And what about physical education?
That is part of a degree plan. Is not what's in our core, the physical education. I think it's 1181 that's being used in class.
It is in the core?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So how many classes would they take that would be physical education as part of that?
One. They do one.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Proud of the work you're doing.
In the same regard, are these dual credit and or early college high school students, are they subject to our pathways model as well?
Yeah, well, the early college high school students are really on an academic path for transfer, most of those, and the PTECs will be on whatever the occupation is that the partner that's being done with those PTECs. Okay, and do we have any kind of prediction that, say a student that lives in Hazel, just outside our district, and now they qualify for in-district tuition? Right. Do we have any prediction as to two questions? How many of those might be attending TCC as opposed to some other institution? Number one, and number two, would they then also qualify for, if they attend TCC as a full-time student, would they also qualify for in-district tuition? That's a good question. We debated that a lot in our team. First of all, if we were to partner with Hazel, we would have to have an MOU with Hazel to do that. The student can't just say, I want to take a dual credit student. So that's one of the conditions. If the student graduates Hazel, lives there and wants to come to Trinity to be a nurse, they will then be charged to out-of-county tuition. This is strictly just for the dual credit to build that, because those students are kind of trapped within those, particularly in Northwest and Mansfield.
Or they need to move across town.
Well, they could move.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions, discussion?
Mr. Heed, I had
go ahead.
Observation. I think this is a good recommendation, and I appreciate the way you've illustrated what the cost of this is. I'd like to ask that at some point, Chancellor, that we have a rather detailed briefing about these programs, the differences in the programs, and the financial ramifications. How's the income and expense aspects? If I understood what Dr. LeBlanc said, we get state money for some of this.
All of it. Yeah.
This obviously, there's some financial impact, and what we've illustrated here is that it doesn't take much growth in enrollment to offset that, but are there other ramifications from a cost standpoint that play into this? And you don't have to answer that right now. I'm just suggesting that it would be very beneficial to me, and I suspect other members of the board to have. I guess we get that during the budgeting process to a degree, but not in any detail.
Yeah.
Sure, we can do that. In addition, it would be good to also articulate the many different types of agreements and arrangements we have with the ISDs, so you can see how the revenue and expenses flow from the different models.
So they're different with different ISDs.
They can be, yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think that would be beneficial to the board. Good program, don't get me wrong. I'm not questioning the program in any way. I think this is extremely important.
Yeah, it's 20% of our enrollment. 14% of dual credit, 6% early college high school PTEC.
And I don't want to leave out hanging there the notion that the agreements are different without some understanding. And we can get into the detail that you like, but we try to approach these arrangements, and a lot of arrangements, not just with high schools, but with others, under the concept of a balanced exchange, meaning that we have equal value for equal value that we're doing, that we're providing, and what in this case the ISD may be providing. And given the history, given the particular ISD, those balanced exchanges can be different to accommodate, in most part, the ISD's desire.
If I'm not mistaken, a large part of our increase in students at TCC are a result of their dual credit and early college high school.
Yes.
So in that regard, how are we recruiting other school districts to participate in this? And is there any way the board can help in that?
The board can always help. I think this. We haven't recruited. I mean, we don't go out and say, "Would you rather come to us on this?" Usually, the ISDs will come to us, particularly if they're being serviced by a college that might not be able to offer the program that they want to put in. With a P-Tech, for example, we're working that with NTCC. They want to do an automotive partnership with us, and then NTCC doesn't have an automotive program. Yeah, and you can.
So basically, we serve the districts that are in Tarrant County, and there are some that are growing that have potential for joining us, such as Northwest ISD. Dr. Coppola's example was good. We have aviation program right across the street from Northwest ISD, and some of those students are living in Tarrant County, but a great number of them are not. And Northwest ISD is interested in partnering with us so that more of their students can participate in programs such as that. The same is true of Azle, Burleson, Joshua, and other districts that are just across the street basically from us, but are in a different county. And we offer programs that the community colleges in their service area may not be able to offer. So we're also sensitive to the community colleges in the other counties. And so we're sensitive to that. There's a balance to what we do.
But within Tarrant County, approximately how many school districts or what percentage are participating?
We work with all of them. All of the school districts in Tarrant County are partners with Tarrant County College.
Thank you.
What about the public charter schools?
We have some of those. I don't have the list of all of them, but we have a significant number of the charter schools.
But we're open to partnering with them.
Yes. They reach out to us. We also work with the homeschooled students. We really, when you start analyzing all the different groups, it's greater than the public schools.
You mean in number, you mean?
Yes, sir.
Interesting.
Would this include parochial schools as well?
If they reach out to us, we stand ready to work with them.
Any other questions, comments, discussion?
Mr. Heed, I do have another quick question, please. This is Teresa. Dr. Coppola, you mentioned something about the personas, when you were talking about the principals, and it talks here about onboarding and advising. What's the student advisor ratio now for this age group? Do you know?
At the high schools?
Yeah, I'm just curious.
I don't know about the high school, but I can tell you the T3 data is about 1,200 to 1. So
1,200?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what we're getting from Fort Worth because of that. But it's down. I think it's between 800 and 1,200, but I don't know what's on the high school.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Mr. Heed.
Go ahead.
Yes, one of the things that's very exciting about these types of programs is that it offers the opportunity for the smaller school districts, and you mentioned charter schools earlier. Many of them are among the smaller school districts, and they use these programs to serve as their honors program. It is their honors program.
Thank you, Dr. Patrick. Any other questions, comments, discussion?
Ms. Teed, I don't really have any questions. Well, I guess I kind of do. There are still so many students that I run into that do not know about dual credit opportunities. And when you say that advising is 1,200 to 1, which I'm sure is really close to correct, it may be even larger than that in some high schools.
I can't speak from experience.
Yes, but is there a way that we could do something to help students, freshmen and sophomores, to have an understanding of what dual credit? I believe it starts at junior year.
Yeah,
is when you start taking them, because there's still a large number of students that don't know about taking dual credit. And if you start earlier, they'll make sure they got their ducks in a row so that they can be qualified to take dual credit programs. So I would
that's a great question, because it doesn't only depend on the ISD, it depends on the high school itself. Some high schools promote the dual credit path very strongly. Others might promote an AP path and don't realize that the dual credit is there. Through our principal work, we have really worked hard with our dual credit coordinators. Every ISD has a point of contact on each of the campuses and also with district that has done more of a reach out. We're now mandatory orientation and training for advisors and counselors at the high school to tell them the benefits of dual credit.
And that should start even before high school, should it not?
It's usually, well, with House Bill 5, the students have to pick their career paths in 8th grade. And that's when we're starting to get in there through CACO and through many of the other avenues we're doing. And that's the part of the guidance pathway plan.
Thank you. Any other questions, discussion?
It was just nice to talk to people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, President.
We'll move on to item G, which is consideration approval of the payment to Blackboard, Inc. for hosting and storage overage costs in the amount of $405,000. Mr. Pacheco.
Good afternoon. This request is for the Blackboard LMS storage and bandwidth overages charges that we incurred this last year and this year. These excess consumption charges were due to the massive move of our online delivery for student instruction because of COVID-19. These charges cover 2 periods that overlap COVID, September 2019 to September 2020, and from September 2020 to the end of our Blackboard contract this coming September. This request will also cover expected charges during the remaining months of our contract. IT will monitor closely the storage and bandwidth use to make sure we do not exceed our new limits. We have already taken proactive measures to ensure that we stay within our new cap. Additionally, by September, we will have completed the switch over to our new learning management system, Canvas. These overage fees will be assigned to CARES Act funding. Any questions?
Questions, discussion?
Do we owe this money now? Is this just something that's coming in the future?
No, we owe this money now. Or we have net 60 or something like that, but it's coming up.
So wouldn't we have to pay it anyway? Why aren't we approving? I mean, doesn't the contract require us to pay the overage?
Yes, these are overages, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But this is just to let you guys know that.
Let us know. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? Thank you. We'll move on to item 7, review of a proposed individual action items for the board meeting on February 18th, 2021. Item A is consideration and approval of a request to increase the previously approved spending authority for Dell Computer by $450,000 to a limit of $1,200,000 not to exceed. Mr. Pacheco.
Like the previous Blackboard usage increase request, this request concerns fees associated with increased utilization of our technology resources. In this instance, we use a service called Virtual Desktop Interface, commonly called VDI, that we license through Dell Computers. VDI gives a secure Windows desktop interface on virtually any device and allows faculty and students access to applications and services that they would otherwise be difficult to provide a consistent user experience for. Because of COVID-19 and dramatic adoption by our faculty, staff, and students, we need to upgrade our VDI licensing from standard to enterprise. Besides comprehensive licensing coverage, the new licensing provides for advanced end-user interface called Workspace ONE and increased security capability. We are asking to increase the spending authority to $1.2 million for Dell computers that provides the VDI capabilities. The upgrade costs of $687,000 for the new licensing will be charged to the CARES Act.
Questions, discussion? Thank you.
Thank you.
We move on to 7B, consideration and approval of an initial 18-month contract with 3 one-year options to renew with Guardian Services for the window washing services on Trinity River Campus and Trinity River East Campus in the amount of $312,250.
Yeah, so there's actually 2 items before you related to window washing, and this first one is related to Trinity River, and it's separate from the rest of the campuses because of the skill needed for high-rise buildings and so on. So it ended up being a separate contract. We are proposing an 18-month term for the first portion of it to align it with our fiscal year. In addition, I wanted to point out we've had this conversation a little bit before about renewals. And in this instance, because this is sort of a routine operating expense and the rates have been negotiated for 3 additional renewals, our recommendation includes those 3 annual renewals that would be executed by staff without returning to the board, assuming that there's not any challenges or problems with the vendor. Because this is a routine operating expense, we think that makes sense, but are open to your questions or comments on that strategy.
And the cost for Trinity River East exceeds the cost of the washing for the entire rest of the campuses.
Yeah, you may recall that when we've talked about our construction of future facilities, one of the challenges with TREC is that they don't have and I'm trying to remember what the word is, davits, I think, that allow the window washers to be able to come in and easily access all of the floors and so on. And so the design of the building and the way the louvers are and so on create an added expense for those facilities that certainly in future design we would avoid to make sure that we're planning for operating expenses.
Questions, discussions? And
yes,
you weren't part of that design.
No, sir.
I'm sure. Question?
Yes.
Got it.
So this contract.
Oh, Dr. Patrick.
Excuse me, go ahead. I'm sorry, were you speaking?
Go ahead.
Okay. This is a new contract for initially for 18 months and then 3 one-year options. What were we doing before we had this contract?
So the same vendors, I believe, were providing the service, and we went through a rebidding process because it was time. So it was just time for a new exercise in finding a vendor.
So, but it was for this exact same these locations?
Yes, and you'll notice that the proposed rates actually are a district-wide cost decrease of 9% for the window washing as well.
Oh, okay. That was my next question. Was it more or less? So it's less?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Heed, I would just observe, I don't have any problem with certainly your explanation about the renewal options and so on. I do think it would be beneficial for the board to see that we had competitive bids and some better information would be appropriate to provide the board, it seems to me, just so we have a sense of the overall process.
Okay.
It was competitively bid.
Yes.
Right? I think we ought to get the numbers, what the bids are.
We can add that before next week's consideration.
But I know I had proposed early on that contracts would come back to the board when we had extensions, and I'm saying on an operational matter like this, I agree with your suggestion.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any further questions, discussion? Then we'll move on to item 7C, which is similar, consideration and approval of an 18-month contract with 3 one-year options to Renewal with fish window cleaning for services on South, Northeast, Northwest, Southeast campuses and other off-site locations in the amount of $216,084.84.
Yes, this is very similar to the last one, just for different properties, and we'll take the same comments from Trustee Barr on this one as well and update the content for you for next week.
Questions, discussion?
Mr. Heath, this is Teresa. I just have a quick clarification. Ms. Alanis, is it possible that in your information that you're going to share with us and the board that you could include just generally, I don't need to know the number of windows, but kind of, what kind of space are we looking at? Is it 100,000 square feet? Just generally, if you have that data, that'd be great.
Yes, we'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Just so we kind of know, what they're going to be doing. Thank you.
Any further questions, discussion? Then we'll move on to item 7D, consideration approval of contract with Perkins and Will for design work on electronics building renovation project on South Campus, the amount of $441,483.
So you may recall in our discussion about technology attributes of our future facilities, one of our suggestions was to use our need to renovate the SELE building down at South Campus as a potential pilot. And so what we decided to do was engage Perkins and Will into the design since they're our partner at Southeast as well. This aligns nicely with the work that we'll be doing with the Intelligent Buildings Group to make some decisions about technology that would be applied there, potentially including POE lighting or whatever the conclusion of that exercise is. So, but the renovation is obviously more broad than just those attributes. And so we'd like to get them under contract to start that work.
I had a question. The total amount, I mean, I'm all for the project, but the total amount of the estimated renovation is going to cost $7,095,000 for a building built in 1967. That's 13,345 square feet. My calculations come out to about $531.66 per square foot. Have you given any thought to, I mean, you still have a 1967 building. Has there been any thought given to tearing it down and building a brand new one?
So let me visit with the team a little bit on that question. That's a good one. And I will get that information for you before next week.
Because our Northwest, I think, is $464 a square foot, something like that. Any other questions, discussion?
Yeah, I would ask that in bringing this forward next week, I'd appreciate a little bit of an explanation, and maybe we've already heard this, kind of bring us up to date on what we're trying to accomplish here. What's this about? The uses, the characteristics of the building. It sounds like a lot of money per square foot, but it may be very easily justifiable.
We can definitely add some additional information. You may recall that previously we had included a project sheet on this as we had discussions about using this as a pilot, but what we can do is also expand that information to include how the building is currently utilized and who will benefit from that.
Where we're headed, what are we trying, what's the benefit of doing this?
Okay.
The other thing, to go back to what I asked earlier about including items from the Memorandum of Understanding in our contracts. I don't know if this could be done in this contract or not, but I would hope we can get there on a go-forward basis.
Okay.
Any further questions, discussion?
Mr. Heed, this is Teresa. Yes, a follow-up to Mr. Barr's comments, Ms. Alanis, I'd like to, if you could also include what other options or locations that we explored besides this one.
Do you mean in terms of planning it as a pilot project with a digital roadmap?
Correct.
I will say that, and I'll pose that to staff to consider. Part of the appeal of this particular location is that it is indeed was on our capital program for renovation, and also with the programs that happen to be taught there seem to align nicely with the technology aspects that we have under consideration. But I'll find out if there were other contenders that were considered.
Right. Thank you.
And this is part of the bond program?
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions, discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Gwen Morrison. Ms. Alanis, might have the pictures of the building?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said, might we have some pictures of the building and some graphics?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions, discussion? We'll move on to 7E, consideration approval of contract with Freedom Construction for construction of a library data room expansion project on South Campus in the amount of $631,354.
Yeah, so this is an upgrade to old IT technology to serve this building, and it requires additional space to accommodate that, and it's a contract to make that happen.
Questions, discussion? Is this bond money as well?
No, actually, this is a pay-as-you-go program.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, discussion? Thank you, Ms. Alanis.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 8, which is report of the Chancellor. Chancellor?
Thank you, Mr. Heed. 8A, a briefing from the Regional Black Contractors Association. They contacted us earlier today and asked if they could move to March, likely because of the conditions outside today, so we will accommodate that. Nevertheless, though, we do wish to give you the quarterly briefing of the minority women-owned business enterprise, and Andre McEwen will do that for us. Andre?
Good afternoon. President Heed, Board of Trustees, Chancellor Giovannini, thank you for this opportunity. As we promised back a couple of last year, to provide you with a quarterly update to our program, which we transitioned from our 20% overall goal. As you know, as of August of 2020, we're now in I'll call it a MWBE hub program. We have 5 categories that you'll see here in a moment. So this is our quarterly report from September through November into November. As you know, the board adopted a new plan as indicated, and the staff committed, I and the entire staff. And let me just say, staff does not include just Andre. It includes the entire facilities department, all of the end users of Tarrant County College in support of our MWB Hub program. So just want to say this is a collective impact of creating opportunities for our small minority business owners. Our goals, we have several that we commit to on an annual basis. As you can see, obviously our new goals, and we'll speak to those in a minute in terms of our spend. Our categories include professional service, other services like elevators, flight training, pilot flight training, and others, and commodities, which primarily includes our IT department and things that we do as far as software and hardware opportunities purchases. In addition, we look to our job order contracting program, both our general construction as well as our trade job order contract, which provides our, I'd say, intermediary, small type projects, but cumulatively have a great impact on our program, MWB. We encourage prime contractors to do joint ventures where possible. In the case of our 2 large projects now in the bond program. So that encourages downstream subcontractor support with a minority-owned company and a joint venture. We continuously do outreach. I'm the face to introduce small minority women-owned businesses to Tarrant County College to sustain the current we have about 150 vendors we work with right now, and we look to move that with the bond program to up to over 200, hopefully, with our outreach. So we target about 100 to 200 on an annual basis with our diversity business organizations and network that we have throughout the North Texas, as well as specific to Tarrant County. And we leverage our role in the certification process of certifying businesses. I represent Tarrant County College on the North Central Texas Regional Certification Agency. It's the largest in the state, one of the largest in the country, of about 4,000 plus certified MWB vendors. So I sit and support policy to support the utilization of those vendors throughout our projects that we have here at Tarrant County College. These are the numbers, first quarter. Let me just summarize it and say, as a result of coming out of I've been here almost 9+ years, and we have a strong core within our subcontractor business, job order contracts, general contractors, and trades. So what you see here indicated in the construction and special trades, where those vendors are, is a strong, sustainable, continuous support and utilization by facilities, primarily, and thank you to Facilities Department, and utilization in our JOC program and other large projects that we've had. So it's strong, and these numbers are reflective of categories that we code within our system as professional service, construction, commodities, other, and as well as special trades. You see the cumulative number. We're pretty, again, sustainable. We've upticked since last end of the full year, 24%. We moved to 25%, 24.5. I predict that number will move even further north as a result of the strong participation and support of our large GCs like Skanska, Sun Construction, and others. So just want to indicate here, I feel we have a sustainable program, stable, but we'll move opportunities within our professional services, IT, and other service types contracts. Action plans for the team, purchasing, myself specifically, to increase our RFP process opportunities above 50,000, specifically in the financial services, IT, educational consulting areas. This is working directly with the departments, end users, working with the buyers specifically, where there's opportunity. Traditionally, historically, we've worked off of state contracts, cooperatives, which give us the best economics of spend, but where there's opportunities to provide RFQs, RFPs within these areas, that's what we're going to pursue, working with the department and end users to support our MWB program. More specifically, be targeted in our effort with our diversity business organizations specific to architects, engineers, legal, and various other consultative areas that we utilize within our purchasing process and our educational delivery methods that we do, and just work closely with those folks directly and understand and really, more importantly, forecast their needs sooner. Because as we know, small business owners need that lead time to help support that. So our goal will be to get forecasts from the departments, as we do with facilities also, to help target those areas that we have low spend in, like our professional services, other services, as well as consulting. And just increase the MWB vendor base where we have low spend categories. That means specifically working through NCTRCA, basically on a monthly, really weekly basis. I send out specific emails to those areas that we target for those procurements, architects, engineers, and others. So that will be being more targeted, more strategic in working with the vendors, one-on-ones, working through the chambers, working through the diversity organizations. Finally, what activity have we done over the last quarter? We continue to do we hosted a virtual vendor fair in last November. Very successful, over about 150 to 200 folks. We've had with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, we've been involved with a vendor fair with Skanska. We had a virtual vendor fair with them. In addition, Sun Construction, who's doing our renovation next door, we're working with them. We've had virtual outreaches with them. In addition, we have weekly general contractor, professional service, commodity, and commodity one-on-one outreaches. That's me fielding calls on a daily basis. If you can imagine, we're open for business. We've got $825 million we're trying to spend, so folks are calling on the daily, emailing. So there's one-on-one taking place on a daily basis. And having ongoing business diversity targeted outreaches. An hour ago, I was on a virtual call with the Forward Black Chamber of Commerce with Skanska, as well as with my colleague, Marla Givens, having a call with the chamber. So we have continuous outreach. We expect on a monthly basis, we'll be doing this probably every 2 or 3 times a month, doing outreaches and just educating the vendor community about our various opportunities. This is just a picture, give you a picture of our connectivity pre-COVID. This just lets you know connectivity of what we do and how we do it with our diversity organizations, being on panels, working with the SBDC to provide any capacity training we need for the small business owner, working with specific projects, we're working with specific general contractors to make sure we get the word out to the community. And I am open for questions. Thank you.
I don't know if this is in your bailiwick, but the bond dashboard has a lot of information regarding this. It's pretty proactive in looking for MWB contractors. You want to comment on that, or is that a Chancellor question?
Well, I'll answer where we are. We are working with Jacobs. We just had a planning call last week, so we're working through our department, our web department with Jacobs. So we'll be involved. We'll have links related to MWB. We'll have a dashboard that shows the spend where we are. We'll be doing outreach, coupling with Jacobs to support us in making sure that we get the word out and working specifically with the general contractor. Part of their oversight, obviously, a part of their scope is to work with us with those GCs, in this case, Skanska, with making sure the word gets out and specifically dialing in on the outreach MWB. They do have a scope component of MWB outreach with one of our vendor partners on their team. So I work directly with her in that regards. Arcelia Acosta with Carcon. So that is a part of their scope to help assist and support us in the MWB outreach and ultimately to increase our spend. Yes. And
my understanding is that veteran-owned business are now part of this as well. Have you received any interest in?
Well, no, right now, let me just clarify, President He, we do not have them currently in those 5 categories, but we do encourage for their opportunity to work with us. But we do not have a veterans goal in our hub program as of right now.
And does anybody that I assume your figures are disaggregated. In other words, if somebody is a African-American veteran woman, do they get any extra credit, or do you somehow keep track of that? Because that, you're hitting a number of different categories.
Yes, sir. So currently in our drill down, I can drill down into specifically to ethnicity and gender. I can drill down into location and certification. So we can drill down into those numbers. You saw the summary numbers, the aggregate numbers here, but yes, we can to determine where we have opportunity to reach out to those particular vendor types in those areas. Yes. But the evaluation does not, in our evaluation, it does not include that. It includes being a certified MWB. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Further questions?
Hi, this is Teresa. Yes, Mr. Heed, if I may.
Go ahead.
Mr. McCune, thank you for this information. It's very helpful. Just want to clarify a couple of things for me, if you don't mind. On the slide that you talked about, the first quarter results, it's a table, which was very helpful.
Yes.
You're saying that this is the percentage of MWBE spending. So what is the comparison of our total overall spending? Do we have that information as well?
So the comparison is the cumulative right now. I can get the categories that we have here, Trustee Ayala. These are new categories, meaning our coding. We had to go in and code, if you can imagine, the entire database going from September with our new hub plan. But the cumulative is our best comparison, I would say. But we had not coded this way prior to September 2020.
Okay. So we can get that number going forward, but for now, this is what we have.
Yes.
I got it.
We can do a quarterly comparison starting in quarter two. Yes.
Okay, that would be great. And then, go ahead. And then the other question I had was, it's kind of along the lines of what Mr. Trustee Heed asked when he was asking about weight. So I'm sure whenever an RFP comes through, there's a weight as far as how these are, how they're measured, right? Or how they're, how we decide. So what is that? Do we have just a number that's pretty consistent across the board? Is there a standard, or is that something that we set as far as if a vendor comes and they're an MWBE and it's, 5%, 10%? What is that number? And is that just an industry standard number, or is that a number that we place?
So prior to the change of the plan, we had a 10% weight on MWB utilization across all of our procurements. Going forward, beginning September, we have a 15% weighting of utilization of MWB certified vendors on all of our procurements.
Okay.
And that was based on, I would say, North Texas, meaning City of Fort Worth, meaning Tarrant County, as well as we looked over into Dallas County too, and working with Susan, we made a determination that we wanted to move that weighting to 15% and it was prior to that 10%. So that's across the board. So I work with the entire purchasing department whenever we prepare procurements. They work with me. That's the weight, but the goal is still based on the hub goals, those 5 goals you saw.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Any further questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. The board will recall last June, I believe it was, we began discussing the process of engaging the process of a new ERP, an enterprise resource planning project. And at that time, we awarded a contract to a firm called ISG to assist us in that planning. And Bob and the ISG folks are here today to give you a briefing on an update and the status of that. So, Bob.
Thank you, Chancellor. Next slide, please. So good afternoon. Today's presentation is informational only. It has been a generation since TCC evaluated and purchased an ERP system to run our financial, HR, and student systems. TCC and its various divisions and departments have been working hard these past couple of decades to adapt and modify our ERP platform to our ever-grown and complex business and student needs. Today, we are updating the board on the work completed to date, as well as the creation of the RFP, which through the selection process will determine our new ERP platform. As you may recall, we hired an independent consultant organization specializing in helping higher ed institutions evaluate these large and complex platforms. ISG has helped dozens of schools across the U.S. to go through this very same process that we embarked upon last summer, including the University of North Texas Systems, the Texas A&M University System, and the University of Texas at Austin. In a few minutes, you will see the work that ISG and TCC completed to generate over 1,100 ERP requirements, all of which went into the RFP release just this last Friday to the public. This is a significant undertaking for the college, one that will have lasting effect on how we operate and function for both our students and employees' needs for the next generation. Next slide, please. Today, joining us from ISG is Gary Allen and David. And the other part of the agenda is that we have the project background, which they'll get into, the objectives and the expected benefits, the TCC community involvement, the ERP selection process and timeline, and the projected software and implementation costs, and then an open discussion, any questions that you may have.
Is
David
there
and Gary?
a short definition of ERP? I mean,
yes.
Something I can get my brain around.
Not a problem. ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning, and it's the platform which our financial systems work off of, the human resource systems, the student information system that we may have. And so it's really the guts, the informational guts of the institution.
It's a software.
Yeah.
Software. Okay.
Is that what they want?
Thank you.
From Gary and David, are you there?
Yes, Bob. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and we appreciate the opportunity to discuss the project today. In terms of our presentation, we'll be going over the background and objectives of the project and the expected benefits as well. We'd like to highlight can we go back to the just the intro, please? Thank you. We'd like to highlight the community involvement that of the staff, of students. Leadership has been very important and has contributed to the progress that we made, and we anticipate significant participation by the community going forward. We'd then like to turn to the selection process, the approach that we're following, and highlight the timeline for you. And finally, prior to going to any open discussion, we'd like to share with you projected software and implementation costs. These are an early estimate of what these costs will be. We'd like to have you aware of them as you go into the selection process, so you can keep this bigger picture cost in mind when we will be refining these costs as we move forward through the project. So next slide, please. The ERP software that TCC currently uses is called Colleague. It was initially developed in the 70s, and during the 18 years that the college has been using it, many things have changed. Obviously, the college has grown significantly, both in terms of enrollment and complexity, and the demands of students and faculty and staff and leadership have changed very significantly. So we are now at a point in time where it seems the college needs really software that can support a population of 50,000 students and that can advance as quickly as the college itself. The current software has been highly customized. Many modifications have been made. And in addition, it operates to support your administrative operations in connection with 50 additional software products. So as you can imagine, there's a great deal of maintenance that's required as new releases of this software comes out. These changes and these integrations have to be reset. There are likely better ways of using technology staff to encourage modern technology innovations. As we have interviewed the college leadership and as well as surveyed faculty and staff, we have confirmed that there are significant frustrations and unmet needs. Students recently shared with us those as well. We also have noted that there are significant manual operations throughout all of these functional areas that we described. Extensive use of spreadsheets and manual workarounds are required to accomplish the tasks at hand. So with this background, I'd like to turn it over to Gary Allen, who's our project director, to take you through the rest of our presentation.
Great, thank you, David. If we could move to the next slide, please. So as David said, the technology platform that Colleague is based on is aging. It's really reaching the limits of its lifespan. And so one of the primary goals of the new system is of course, a modern technology platform. The college will be looking at a cloud-based solution. That is pretty much where the higher education market and the entire ERP industry is going. So that will ensure that we are getting new, modern technology and capabilities. All of that will support the college's ongoing goals and strategic objectives. One of the primary ones that we're very heavily focusing on is, of course, student success. And that's a primary goal for the college. It's reflected in a number of 3G AP initiatives. And of course, also other things and organizational changes, having the flexibility to accommodate the diverse kinds of programs and offerings that the college provides today. Next slide, please. So to give you an example of some of the more specific benefits, there are a lot more benefits than the 9 that we put on here. These are some that speak to a little bit more to the strategic and higher priority initiatives of the college. Certainly student success is huge. As I just mentioned, it's not only a huge initiative and focus for Tarrant County College, but it's a huge focus overall in the higher education industry. And what we're seeing is that many of the modern ERP vendors are addressing that with a number of new capabilities. One of the primary ones is supporting guided pathways, really the ability for a student to plan their degree program, work with their advisor, work with their instructors, plan out their path of study. And then as they enroll, they're guided through that process and kept on the path. In some cases, you have the ability to make it more or less restrictive based upon your needs and priorities and policies, but it helps guide the student. Many of the vendors are also investing heavily in their research and development efforts to support these kinds of initiatives with things like artificial intelligence and chatbots and other kinds of recommendation engines, and helping students plan their study, helping them target programs of study that may be a better fit for them if they're not doing well, select programs of study that help them achieve their career objectives. So a lot more focus on students, on the planning efforts, on how they succeed and how they move through the college in a successful way. Another major focus here is around how the college administratively supports the student and how they provide support for the student as they're going through, and perhaps they're struggling, or they stumble, or they have questions, or they need assistance. One of the call it kind of a hidden feature of Colleague that we heard a lot about is that the Colleague prohibits more than one person from working on a student's record at the same time, and that prohibits departments collaborating to work on an issue with a student. And this is something, again, that the vendors are really addressing very proactively. They're introducing new technologies like chatbots and screen sharing and other kinds of messaging built into the application and the transactions, so that staff can work on student records and help the student, and rather than bouncing the student from one office to another, have the ability for the departmental people, the administrators, to do that on the student's behalf. Information access and enhanced access to data, things like much more flexible end user reporting tools. Users can develop dashboards and analytics, all of this being supported with real-time data. So as students are enrolling, as grades are being submitted, as things are happening in the system, in real time, you can see those changes, you can see those analytics, you can see the impact on the bottom line and other kind of related information. It also is much more configurability, so it allows many of the kinds of non-standard programs that the college has, and we're seeing across higher education. Things that we heard a lot about this from the CEE folks when we were doing some of our interviews and workshops, and a lot of programs that they offer perhaps are just on a single day. And today, that's very difficult in the Colleague system to manage. And so they're doing a lot of this stuff on spreadsheets, even in some cases on actual paper, pen and paper. and then follow up with entering data into the system. And these modern systems are designed for those kinds of things. So much more flexibility around non-standard kinds of offerings, time periods, programs, et cetera. And all of that is supported with better tools to make users, whether it's a student or faculty or staff, more efficient. So more automation, more workflow, more alerts, notifications, nudges, reminders, and all of that helps reduce the amount of manual work and the risk that is inherent in the system today. Next slide, please. So as David mentioned, we've had great cooperation and participation and enthusiasm really from across the campuses and across the district. We won't go into all of this, but happy to answer any questions on it. But we surveyed all employees. We got great, roughly 30% feedback. We met with all of the campus presidents, with Dr. Giovannini, Dr. LeBlanc, many of the other leaders of the institution. We worked through a series of different workshops and demonstrations with well over 100 faculty and staff. All of that led into defining the requirements and the other content that went into the RFP. And we've also met with students to collect their feedback, hear their concerns, all of which will help us continue to refine this process and go forward into the selection process and software demonstrations later on in the spring. Next slide, please. So when we look at this entire project, we look at it as a single effort, but it's really broken down into two major procurement efforts. The first is around the evaluation and selection of the software itself. As I think Bob mentioned, we just issued the RFP to the public on Friday. And so we will be receiving responses in early March and going through the evaluation process on that. We expect to have the selection of that software done by June and present that to you all in the July or August timeframe. The second procurement builds on that and is to select a consulting partner, implementation services partner, to help the college implement that software. So we'll be going through that as a separate process after the software is selected. We recommend and support having the two separate RFPs and evaluations because in our experience, it provides the most flexibility to the college. Rather than the software vendor selecting the partner, it allows the college to be in control of that and fit the partner that best fits their needs. The implementation partner is somebody that you'll be working with for 3, 4, probably 5 years. And so there needs to be a very good fit there. After both of those RFP and selection processes, you will then execute the two contracts together. And that provides you leverage over the process on both sides for the software and the services. It also reflects the reality of when you'll start using the software and start making payments on it. And the goal is to begin, have all of that done by the end of December or January, and then start the implementation in early calendar year 2022. Next slide, please. So this is just a brief perspective of the kind of the structure of the project. So you can see there we have the work broken up into 5 phases. The blue items are things, tasks or activities, deliverables that have been completed. The item in green is something that we're working on now. And the items in black are things that are still pending. And so as you can see, the phases kind of build, and we start the project, go through an assessment and evaluation process, define requirements and sort of the future state. And then where we are now in phase 4 is that software evaluation and selection process. And then, as I said, we'll move into the implementation services selection process. Next slide, please. So So one of the major deliverables that we had that was part of really kind of overlaps between phase 2 and phase 3 was to look at a projection of the potential costs that the college will incur for the software subscription and then the implementation costs for that. As you can see, it's a wide range, but what we have done is we've based the software costs on information we received in response to a request for information to software vendors that we did back in the August and September timeframe. So those costs are based on actual costs that we receive from the vendors. Their estimates will continue to refine all of these as we proceed through the process, as we collect more information from the RFPs, as we engage with the vendors through the demonstration process and reference checks and of course the negotiations. As we do that, we'll continue to refine these estimates and provide updated information to the board. The implementation costs are based upon costs that ISG has seen in higher education for similar projects with similar kinds of institutions in the last year or two. So those are based on real data, but they're estimates of a kind of a standard pro forma implementation schedule. We've based that on a 5-year schedule for the full implementation beginning in early calendar year 2022. It may in fact be shorter. Possible it could be longer, but probably not, but could certainly be shorter depending on the software that you choose. Some software packages will be more amenable to doing things in a different order, but we've based on kind of a standard schedule that we typically see. The TCC costs are based upon the assumption that the TCC will have a team of dedicated resources. We project roughly 25 to 50 individuals over the course of that 5-year period. The number will vary at different phases of the project based upon the activities that are going on. And the cost that you see there for TCC resources, that's assuming that you are backfilling those positions. So the best practice and what we strongly recommend is that people are assigned to the project on a full-time basis. They are typically your best and brightest. You want the people who really understand the college, who really understand the processes, who can really think about how to move things forward, about how to do things differently, how to be creative with the software. And that's a lot of business people. It's not those aren't IT some of those are IT resources, but a lot of these are business people from the functional departments. And so the costs that you see are the cost to backfill them. That allows them to focus on the implementation and the future, and then others can do their day-to-day jobs. I'll also note that these are tenure costs. These, of course, will be, as I said, negotiated and adjusted as we learn more. We'll also call your attention to footnote number 2. So once the new software is up and running and stabilized, you will then have the opportunity and be able to terminate the colleague support contract. We estimate that will be in year 6 of this 10-year period. And currently, those colleague maintenance costs are roughly $900,000 per year. So those will be savings that will kick in year 6. There are also likely other software components or software products that will be able to be terminated and replaced with the new software. Until we select that software, we won't know what those are, but there probably will be some additional savings there, although those are typically much, much smaller than what we see with the colleague amounts. So with that, I will open up if there's any questions for David and I. Happy to address them.
Will you give me, this is Bill Greenhill, can you give me some more information on what backfill, these backfill people are? Are they employees of ours, college or independent business people? Or
Sure.
You're talking about backfill people. Just what does that mean?
Yeah, sure. So it's actually probably a combination of contractors and TCC staff. So what happens is typically the project team is a combination of consulting resources, which is the implementation services provider resources, paired up with subject matter experts from Tarrant County College. And so, for example, you would have somebody who is extremely knowledgeable of your student enrollment requirements and your curriculum requirements. That would be somebody from Tarrant County College that would be essentially pulled out of their existing job, assigned to the project, but their existing responsibilities don't go away. So what typically would happen is you would look at other resources in those departments that would pick up some of those responsibilities. It's a chance to promote and elevate a number of people in the departments. But then at some point, you will probably have additional resources you will need to hire or fill in to fill in those gaps that are created as people move up into the project. Does that help? Does that answer your question or more questions?
You talk about a 5-year implementation. That seems like it'd be very disruptive to the college. How do you plan on integrating the induction of the new system versus phasing out colleague?
Yeah, so that's something that will be worked through in incredible detail with the implementation partner as part of those negotiations. Typically what happens is there will be a series of temporary interfaces that will work between the two systems. And as you plan different pieces of functionality that move into production in the new system and replace the old system, and there'll be a series of conversions of data, but that is a very tricky exercise and one that will go through tremendous planning with the implementation service partner. And that's part of why it's so important to have that control over that selection so that you can work with that partner and get someone who really understands it. It will also be looking for and ensuring that the partners have experience with higher education and ideally with colleague so that they understand how to do this properly. Thank you.
And you have the software providers that you're going out for with the RFP. Can they not implement their own software, or is that has to be a totally different organization?
Some do and some don't. So it's a mix. What we see with some of the larger vendors that you will likely be looking at is they actually use third-party consulting firms to do that. Other ones will have their own. And that's one of the things that we'll be asking for is information from the software vendors, what their approach is, what their recommendations are. There's pros and cons either way. What we see when the software vendor does the implementation themselves, they are obviously very proficient and knowledgeable of the software. What they frequently don't do is a lot of the project management, a lot of the change management, a lot of the business process working with you to modify your business processes to improve and change. That's something that the college has expressed the need for, and that typically comes from the independent providers. So there's pros and cons either way, but we'll help evaluate those.
And that piece is critically important because one of the pitfalls in going through this exercise is that once you do land on another software package, that in fact that software package does not become compromised by changing it, if you will, and different patches that folks will want to do. It's much more important that the business process be adjusted to match the capacity of the software. Otherwise, we'll be right where we are now with 50 separate software packages trying to talk to colleague.
Exactly.
Hi, it's Gwen Morrison. Might I have a couple of questions, please?
Certainly.
I'm excited about this, and what I'm really interested in is knowing some of the job titles and descriptions of the persons that we'll be needing to hire in the future. And what I really want to know is, do we have programs in place, and are we enrolling and training students who, upon the completion of that program, they would be qualified and hireable to fulfill some of these needs that are facing us in the future? And this is what one of the answers that for increasing capacity that you keep hearing me talk about every board meeting as a result of this bond program. So I would ask all concerned to explore ways that we can make those things happen, and that we do have students who go through our programs, complete, maybe even go on to a higher level of education, and then are hireable to meet our needs in the future. Thank you. I'd like a response if anybody's thought about that.
I can't speak to the programs that the college offers to support that, but I have seen a number of cases where schools do have those kinds of programs in place and have hired students as interns or other kinds of support with the projects.
So, sir, I'm sorry, Ms. Alanis. As a part of your working with us, it might be helpful if you see what we have and what we need, or what those jobs would need to be, because we have the capability to develop appropriate programming and training. And it's certainly one of my desires, and it seems reasonable that through this process of spending $825 million of taxpayer money, that we help taxpayers in our area become more appropriately and better qualified to meet some of these goals. So thank you.
So what I'll add that that Gary can't speak to is that as we develop the staffing model to support the implementation over time, we'll have a lot more clarity around what those specific positions are and the skill sets, and we'll certainly take under advisement the suggestion you've made. I think it's a good one. A lot of times, as Gary pointed out, what you end up doing is allowing your existing staff to take on new responsibilities and grow, and then use backfill and additions for a lot of the entry level type positions as well. So we'll certainly take that under advisement and see what we can do along those lines.
Excuse me, and it just occurred to me a good question. I wonder how many of the people that we hire each year have trained through TCC and are credentialed through TCC. I'd be interested in that. If we haven't been tracking that, I'd like to see us track that. I think that's an important aspect, important measure of success that I certainly would like to see.
That's a great question, and we'll see what data we have. Or can get, I should say.
I understand that we're looking for a software platform that will require little or no customization. Is that true? And how does that relate to configurability?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, the goal is to have a package that does not get customized. What we see with cloud-based software is that there are actually, in reality, very limited opportunity to be able to customize things, unlike in the past. However, what we've seen is that the vendors recognize that because they don't allow you to customize it, because they need the software to be standardized in order to support it on your behalf, but they introduce much greater capabilities to configure things. Configure things means that you are in control of that, and it's just a standard process. You're not changing the underlying software. So a lot of configurability, a lot of options, a lot more flexibility than what exists today. In Colleague, it just has limited flexibility to configure things, which kind of forces you to customize. In the future, you have much greater kinds of flexibility so that you don't have to customize as much.
I would just add to that as a result of having that flexibility, that's why we're suggesting that you have as high a level of participation in the project as we are, because it's during that project that your folks will need to make a number of decisions regarding how you'll be doing business with the suggestions of the consultants in mind. But nonetheless, they'll need to be there to make those decisions and to configure the software. So that's part of the reason why that level of participation is so significant.
That's exactly right. I mean, the packages available today provide flexibility that we're not seeing, a generation ago. And so that certainly is of benefit to the institution. But I want to be sure we understand that customization is not necessarily, the need for customization is not necessarily a default of the software. It's a lack of will of the institution to utilize the software as the software is presented and not wanting to change processes. And that's one pillar, if you will, in this project, is that there will be no customization. Fortunately, software packages today have flexibility that others didn't have in the past, but we will be morphing into practices that best meet the specs of the software and the utilization of that software. Otherwise, we're defeating the purpose.
And just as a point of interest, Colleague has been around for 50 some odd years. Has Ellucian come up with a new software platform or?
Yeah, so it was originally developed in the 70s. They've continued to improve it and enhance it and upgrade it. Ellucian actually is, Colleague was initially developed by a company called DataTel, which was then purchased by Ellucian. Ellucian has other products as well in its portfolio, and some of which are more modern than Colleague. We'll be interested to see whether we get a proposal from them or not for their more recent stuff.
DataTel goes back to the 60s. Some young gentlemen who I happen to know, one of them branched off of IBM and became very wealthy in creating DataTel, which morphed into Colleague, which morphed into Ellucian's. And so it's been around for a long, long time. The issue today, frankly, is the software that has the capacity to be flexible and to respond to the college's needs and not be such that it puts you in a box, and to defend the institutions that have customized, they've been put in a box and then frankly didn't have that flexibility. But now there is flexibility there today. There is no need for the customization. What companies do, Ellucian or others, just keep pace, we don't completely know. So we'll see what the responders look like.
The only other thing I'll add too is that you may recall we shared with you that the particular way we have implemented Colleague here is very unique. I think there's only 4 or 5 around the country that have the particular setup that we do. And so it prevents us from taking advantage of the advances that Colleague and Ellucian have made over time. So it wasn't as simple as doing an upgrade within our existing environment. Even getting to the new Colleague product would have required us to do essentially a full new implementation, which caused us to pause and look at what the market offered across different companies. So anyway, it's a good opportunity for us to really go through this process once. It'll take time and it'll be painful, but on the back end of it, it will be much better off as an institution.
And I just want to highlight this. This is, you can look at it and say, this is quite unique. Are we the only ones doing this? No, there's cities, school districts, college and university across the country that have to engage in this. And usually it is a 20-year, road, if you will. And the resources required today are the types of resources that you saw today. So yeah, it's a lot of money. And it's over a long period of time, but this is not really a unique venture. It just so happens that we're at that point in TCC's history to have to engage that.
And since we have other software programs that will have to integrate into this system, will we anticipate having to invest in other new software programs to be compatible?
I would not anticipate that, because most of the things that you have are much newer than Colleague. The integration challenges that you face today are primarily originated because of Colleague. The other systems are much more modern and much more capable. And the newer ERP products have much better, newer integration capabilities. So I wouldn't anticipate that would be a driver for replacing things.
I think there is an opportunity. I'm sorry.
I was going to say it's much more likely that out of those 50 things that we've integrated and hung off of Colleague to make our lives work, that a good chunk of those will go away because the functionality will be offered in the ERP system. So that's the intent, is to simplify, because there's significant risk in having all of those integrations to the different systems and how we maintain those over time, and the impact that they have on the functionality for the users. So.
Other questions? Ms. Ayala, we haven't heard from you.
Well, I'm listening to all of y'all. I'm scratching mine off as y'all were asking. Y'all were asking some very good questions. I do have some questions, though. Thank you. Thank you for this information. I think it's been very helpful to kind of find out where we were and where we're going. The slide that you talked about, the TCC community involvement to date around the readiness assessment, can you talk a little bit more about that? And, where was it just, obviously we were getting feedback and we're hoping that this would obviously bring some business opportunities, right? Business engineering or process engineering opportunities. But can you talk a little bit more about that and say, where you say 87 employees were surveyed and then 1,700 were completed? Does that mean of the 57, 1,700 were completed, or is that total, both of them together?
The former, yes. So the survey went out to 5,787 employees. Roughly 30%, or 1,760 of those employees completed and returned the survey.
Okay. So as a result of that readiness assessment that you conducted, did you all sit down and just do workflows, decision trees, things like that, and kind of figured all that out, or is that going to be done at some point?
That'll get done as part of the implementation process. So we didn't go through individual business processes or mapping those out. What we were trying to do was assess how people felt about the system. What are the particular pain points? What are the problem areas? And conversely, what's working well? And so that all helped us define requirements and determine the capabilities that we needed to request in the RFP for the new system.
Okay. The other question I had is, you talked about the ERP selection project approach on one of your slides.
Yes.
And so my questions around those are, how will the methodology be established? And how will that be established? Who will you be seeking evaluation criteria from and for that methodology?
So we've met with we have a steering committee from across the college, and then we've also selected an evaluation committee of subject matter experts from across the college and all of the different functional areas represented by the project. We've worked with them, and we used our prior experience of what we typically see in higher education to define those selection criteria, as well as working with the TCC procurement department. And we're in the process now of kind of fleshing out the details of that review and evaluation process.
Okay. All right. I think I had one other question. When I was reading through your material, I was trying to write them down. So will the conversations and as far as surveys, readiness assessments, will that continue throughout this process? I mean, it's not completed, right? It's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, at this point, the goal of that readiness assessment was to help us, again, flesh out those the pain points, the challenges. We don't have a specific plan around that exactly, but there's no reason that we can't do something. I think as you go into the implementation and that implementation partner picks up the work, that would be something probably that they would continue to assess.
So what you're saying is if there's some changes that we need to implement as far as the student experience, I'm sorry about that, that would happen at implementation rather than before implementation?
It's a combination. Part of one of the things that we did as we went through and defined requirements and worked with the various workshops and different focus groups, we did identify a number of business process areas that are potential things that the college can start working on in anticipation of the implementation. Some of the work will be dependent on the actual software, and so therefore would not be able to start until the implementation. But a lot of it is more procedural, more policy oriented, that is not technology dependent. And so some of those things are already underway through the guise of the 3G8P work groups. Some others are additive to that, and we are working with those groups as well as with Susan and Bob to look at how we can support some of those initiatives to help get the college ready. Okay,
because this is obviously a very robust software that we're going to be having to procure. Are there more than 5 players out there? Are there less than 5 that we would probably be looking at that would be able to support our systems as large as our university or as long as our college is?
Yeah, I would say probably in the neighborhood of 5, give or take. One of the things that we are looking for, again, is that modern technology. There are still some vendors out there who are still continuing to sell some of the older technology, although newer than Colleague. But, and so one of the things that we will be doing is kind of filtering out to make sure that we are getting truly new designed truly cloud-based products. So that does limit it. It is a limited market.
All right. And finally, just to comment to Dr. Morrison's point about training, if there are other colleges, districts, and cities, municipalities that are looking at this, I could see where there might be some opportunities for us to explore because they're going to obviously need support, right, in some of these areas. So whatever route we go, there might be some opportunities out there for training, especially for some of some of our folks that could support these softwares once they're implemented. So just a comment.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Whenever you initiate a change, there's always seems to be pushback. How are we going to, as this new software platform is installed, how are we going to minimize that pushback, and who does most of that? Is that the implementation folks, or is it you guys, or what?
So once you start the implementation, you'll have that new implementation partner who will be working with you. One of the things that we will be defining, and we were kind of alluding to this earlier, is that the process of managing that change, of working with the users to understand that that things need to evolve and be done differently, and looking at best practices and the best way to do that. That change management process is really a critical skill set, and one that we will certainly be defining requirements for in that RFP. So it starts with that implementation partner, but then it's really up to the college, the steering committee, the leadership to promote that. And as Dr. Giovannini was saying earlier, really pushing that and encouraging people that they do need to make changes and not customize. So it becomes a collective effort to make that all happen.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Chancellor?
Thank you, Mr. Heed. I'll draw your attention to 8D, and that's titled as a strategic update. At your place, you should have slides, about 19 or so, that titled 3G, 3 goals, 8 principles. And what I'd like to do today is give you an update where we are on that strategic effort. I'd first want to congratulate and thank the many folks that have been involved in all of this work. I can't understate the effort that's gone into what you're going to see before you today. So it's somewhat in summary, but the summary should not in any way indicate the brevity at all in terms of our effort that people have engaged in, because it has been quite significant. So what I want to do is really provide somewhat of a talk about the landscape of higher education, how it's involved, and why we're engaging in this way. And frankly, things are much different than they were even 10 years ago. And students have choices. It's a competitive environment, and students more and more are discerning as it relates to where they will attend school. What their needs are different than what they were just 10 years ago. So the student needs have changed, however, our physical assets, our services, and how we were built are much different than what those needs are today. So in large part, our response in the 3GAP is just that, to acknowledge that and to see what we do moving forward to really address those different student needs. So what can we do about that? And as this no surprise, we're really focusing on a student's point of view and a holistic approach. So student's point of view, student ready, holistic approach, one college, a college-wide perspective on things, and not looking at issues or our work in the way of silos. And that effort is to inform our physical, our technology, our financial plans, our staffing and such. And so this is really the strategy that we have employed in the whole 3G8P initiative. So it's really important that we stress initially that we talked a lot about the work in a way that would help us build an understanding of our collective direction. And so, how we're going to move forward together. We needed a label or a package, and to help build that understanding, it's become known as 3GAP. That's the label, that's the package. But the core of 3GAP is that the principles are about our programs and services. So the 3GAP are really just a reflection of what our programs and services are. And when you peel that onion back, really that is what 3G and 8P is all about. As for what we mean when we talk about the interconnections and relationships between them, I often say to folks that no one of us serves all the needs of students alone. And so that plants really the understanding that, in fact, it does require some interconnectedness. We all have to be points of interconnection and relationship with each other as employees in order to serve the many student needs that we have. Nothing happens independently. Our services and our programs delivered to students are a collection of effort among the college. The same applies all of these principles have a point of interconnection. So when you begin drilling down, the relationship with each other begins to be seen. You can't really talk about one principle in isolation. In order for one to achieve its desired state, it's dependent upon at least one other. None of our students come to TCC only to go to a college classroom. It's much bigger than that. They go to a classroom, they go to tutoring, they seek counseling, they eat lunch on campus. All the work that is being done has to serve the collective needs of the students in a connected and cohesive manner. And that's the structure we've tried to put in place with this work. So what have we accomplished? We categorized that into two labels, if you will, adaptive accomplishments and technical accomplishments. And the adaptive ones are much more challenging. That's adjusting the way we view things, our mindset, how we go about looking at our work, and then culture, if you will, or culture shift, perhaps. Technical accomplishments are much more easy to define and identify. And those are things that were actually done or acquired, and they're really tangible in nature. We've done both of these accomplishments. In some cases, the technical and adaptive accomplishments developed on the same timeline. In others, we need to advance some technical accomplishments first while we work on adaptive changes that we needed to make in our mindset in order for those technical accomplishments to be more obvious. Movement on both the technical and adaptive fronts have been necessary to make sure we are prepared to meet students' needs now and into the future, particularly the adaptive accomplishments. Technical accomplishments could not have been possible without the adaptive accomplishments of beginning to think of the college as a system. So when we think of the college as a system, all of a sudden those things that we need to do from a technical aspect and how we do them come to light. So it's not 6 different locations on their own, separate island, trying to serve students. And that was really the goal in becoming interconnected as one college. Now we approach a need or an issue that we think of, we are trying to solve as a complete set of interactive programs and activities. So morphing the principles together as a complete set and not as 6 separate sets in terms of campuses or not 8 separate principles. Our team is united in this purpose. And again, I want to congratulate them for the practices that they've employed. And we're really here. Our people and our students have been involved in this, and really a lot of kudos are to be had. So what are some of our big accomplishments that we've had over time? You've seen some of this before. The engagement has been wide as it relates to the number of individuals involved, the number of meetings and sessions that have taken place in various forums. And there's structure all behind this in terms of the principal, with the champion leading the principals, and panels and members of the panels that address and drill down to specific program and service needs. And this is obviously critical to get a complete college buy-in, if you will. I kid a lot often with the leadership team. I don't like words like, transformation and that, because they're words and that's all they are unless they have something behind them. The effort that people have put in place in order to work with these principles and collectively come together with recommendations now to implement has resulted in transformation. So the shift to think as one college, these are system procedures to align and scale them, if you will. Also, to advance the work as predictive rather than reactive. And this is really, really critical. And so that we do our due diligence knowing that we're here for a larger purpose and a larger scale. And when we do that, our efforts become much more predictable. The change that we've had related to responsibility of our decision makers. Our presidents and vice chancellors are leaders of college-wide initiatives. In fact, they lead the principal work itself. That is something different as well. So the planning is comprehensive and interactive and no longer siloed, which is very critical. A point to stress is the holistic strategy that acknowledges the intersection of pedagogy, technology, and space. This is the core and essence of what we do in the instructional environment, both inside and outside the classroom. The connections of these are critical, and the intentional planning to bring these things together to create the most ideal conditions for student learning. So these are the critical aspects of student learning that do need to be collectively worked and not individually. And this is very important related to learning accomplishments. Dr. Morrison had mentioned some weeks ago, and I'll paraphrase here, that good students don't happen without good teachers. Dr. Morrison, I hope I got that somewhat right. And there's no more truthful statement or sentiment. TCC faculty have always been the highest quality and most dedicated. But we know that devoting our constant support and resources to the faculty and classrooms stand to have the most impact on our students and their successes. And so you can see listed there, bulleted, those types of things that not only have been ideated, but have also been implemented in terms of the learning accomplishments. We've established pedagogical and technical standards for classroom refresh. A number of times the board has acted upon the renovation of classrooms. We have chosen a new learning management system in Canvas and thank the board for supporting that. And one aspect that was really important that the institution was missing that is really of great service, and that's instituting the e-portfolios where faculty, staff, and students can demonstrate their learning over time and get credit for that learning, whether it be credit an hour or whether it be for the workplace itself. The student support accomplishments, you heard earlier about developing student personas. That told us a lot about students and how they act and how they behave, what their needs are and what their perspectives are. And that helps to ensure a more student-centric model by having that information, having that knowledge. We've adjusted registration deadlines to become much more efficient and predictable for students and to be much more student-focused. And a consistent class schedule across the college has done great benefit to the Pathway Initiative, and certainly, obviously, much more predictable for students in order to create schedules and navigate through their degree programs. Other student support accomplishments include, and you've heard before, our initiatives around transportation, childcare, and emergency funding assistance. All of those are key metrics to moving the needle, if you will. We recently have redone the student employment process to become much more robust, one in which to make it much easier for students to navigate, as well as to provide more opportunities for student employment. We've done other initiatives around collecting data to help support tutoring. We received a Title V grant, the first of the college, to help a lot of underserved students in basic services to assist them to navigate college. Our second TRIO grant. These are things that are critical to supporting a lot of the student experience and the ISSM, the Integrated Student Success Model. The student degree planning registration tool has helped again in terms of that implementation of guiding students through a pathway. The new service model we have a new service model for our learning commons. So now in students, that learning that takes place outside the classroom is much more structured into a model to make it much more meaningful to students and much more pertinent and direct in value to the students. Other supports accomplishments include redesigning our facilities through the lens of the students and the student needs, if you will, their perspective and their needs, what need to be taken into consideration as to how our physical assets look into the future. We've designed standards for student parking and bike riding. Wayfinding is a big thing in this college as it relates to campus by campus, what we heard over and over again, how difficult it is to navigate a campus. Sensory rooms that are being employed into our facility designs to better understand the use of those facilities in order to ensure that we have the resources necessary for the number of students and the amount of activity that might be taking place. As simple as it sounds, just monument letters showing a sense of arrival and identity to the campuses. As I've kidded before, some of our campuses have one front door, and some have 6, some have none. And so now we're taking a concerted effort, if you will, to address that. Educational partnerships have been very key to moving this forward. Some of what you heard today with the dual enrollment and the PTEX and the early college high school, and Bill talking about Tarrant 2 and through. I do want to remind the board that Tarrant 2 and through, the genesis of that was TCC. That was Dr. Scribner and I nearly 3 years ago sitting down with the leadership of this city to discuss this issue. Unfortunately, the Rainwater Foundation saw value in it, and there we are today. We talked today about a one tuition rate for the dual credit students, and hopefully that'll be acted upon next week. And then about the standardized process related to embedded faculty, how critical that is for the quality assurance of the high school classes. And you heard a little bit about that today. We want to continue that effort as well. So as we move forward, what is of critical nature, if I had to put it in one sentence, if you will, is that our physical assets don't always match our mission in ways that best support students. So that's the eye in which we're going to look things through. So as we look at this capital program in conjunction with the principal work, that in fact we do look at through a service model, if you will, that is very student-centric, and to ensure that our facilities, that our technology, that our staffing, software, otherwise match the needs of the students in moving forward. So as we continue to focus on in the future and meeting those expectations of students is what we will do, try to do in a very dynamic way. And the big thing in the consideration is to be adaptable and be able to scale and size things to a manner of not only today, but well into the future, to be iterative and to be flexible in that process, and a constant evaluation of what we do, looking at our peers, what they're doing well, what they're not doing well, what we may be able to learn. So this will be a constant exercise as we focus on into the future. COVID, didn't really affect our progress. It did affect some of our updates as to what we've had to say and how we've been able to say it. And so what I hope to do beginning today is to continue to get back with you on a regular rhythm of conversations over the next 6 months. You can see some of the things that we have bulleted out. This is not all inclusive, to bring to discussion and topics so that we have much more regular dialogue with the board around these significant issues. Because what's been mentioned a few times, how do we know? What metrics are we looking at? What are our KPIs? Are we really moving the needle? Much of what you heard today in some of these presentations, and hopefully from the update that I just gave you today, are indications of that we are moving the needle, that we are moving forward, and in fact, that good things aren't happening. So with that, I'll be happy to stand for any questions you might have on the comments that I have, or the work that's being done as it relates to the principal work, how it's coalescing together in a manner that it is cohesive and it is as done as one college as they indicated. There are other folks in the room that might be able to answer or on the call that might be able to answer specific questions related to some of the principal work, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
Trustee Heath? I have it's not a question, but one of the things that Trustee Hornsby said in one of his comments was, and I'm still wondering about this, that we're getting better at it, but no one knows who we are. And I understood, of course, people do know who we are, but it's not as good as it should be. I've heard you talk about, Chancellor, the quote campaign, end quote. Is that still something that's coming out soon or sooner than later?
When you're referencing campaign, are you meaning philanthropic?
No, I'm just talking about, I thought you were talking about a campaign for...
Yes. TCC means business campaign?
Yeah.
Yes. Reg date? March.
Okay.
So to put a reference point around it, we had begun talking about this, way before COVID. And the purpose of the TCC means business campaign was just that, to talk about the college's desire and willingness, ability to serve business needs. And with Shannon Bryant coming on board about 1.5 years ago, a lot of that got interrupted as it related to COVID. She's finished her first phase, if you will, of implementations. I can tell you she's extremely busy. You will hear from both her and Kristen Bennett, our new Executive Vice President of Advancement. They will address the board together in March or April. So that was on one of the slides. Yeah. So you will hear an update on that, and the campaign will be out by then, so you'll be able to provide some input.
I think where you started, this is a wonderful presentation. Thank you for that. I think the recognition that higher education is becoming more and more competitive in terms of services and products that are offered to students, and how that relates to well-paying jobs and careers and the starting of new businesses is absolutely critical. And I commend you for addressing that in all this presentation and all this work.
Thank you, Mr. Hayden. Again, I want to iterate, this is, I'm just a spokesperson here. There's many people that have been very involved in this effort. We can't thank them enough for that.
Mr. Heath, this is Teresa. I do have a comment, please, and a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for that information and that update, Chancellor Giovannini. There's been a lot of work going on, and I recognize that folks are working very, very hard. So thank you for your vision and your leadership. What I would like to find out is, with all of the things that are going on, we know that the census data is going to be coming out. We'll have to look at, of course, what that means, what the impact is to us as a college. But looking at this even high level, at what point do we need to sit down and look at, our vision and our mission and make sure that everything is reflecting of the direction that we're going? And then also the policies, if there's anything that we need to look at to make sure that that provides the guidance and the framework and that you need in order for us to move forward.
So I'd offer a couple things. I mean, you consider this really the first large update you've had on our work, our strategic work, and that will continue. Right. You'll continue to see those updates. The second thing we should not lose is that we are up for reaccreditation or decennial accreditation in the next couple of years. That exercise alone will cause us to respond to exactly what some of your thoughts are related to our mission. Which we will examine our ability to meet that mission, and from whether it be financial, whether it be are we demographic wise, and how we're actually delivering on our mission in a nutshell. And that's what the self study is. There's a number of criteria that the college responds to, and really in essence it's saying how do you know you're doing your job? And so that's what we will be doing in that exercise of the self-study and then the accreditation process when our visitors come to see us. So that's a formal answer, if you will, to your question.
Great. No, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Okay, let me just reference then a couple of things in your packet. One is the schedule of upcoming facility and information technology, the spreadsheet that you have there. And then that's 8E. And then F, you have in your packet, and this is just for information, and Elva alluded to this earlier, that this is the time in which we also do faculty promotions. That is not something a board acts on. They do act on the tenure, though. And so for informational purposes, the faculty promotion data for 2021 is in your packet, and I'll be happy to answer any questions related to that if there are any. Other than that, I think we have a short closed session, correct? Yes.
We will now pause our open meeting and go into closed session, a brief closed session.
Mr. Heed, may we just take a 5-minute break before we regroup?
No. We're going to dock the Chancellor's pay. We will now resume our open meeting. And if there is no objections, we will adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.